Hi there, and welcome to the first of our Letters from the Old West. Today, we're going to be talking about two key concepts in the game.
Faith!
Faith
Praise the Lord!
and your big dream. I'm Dave Seamark.
And I'm Matthew Tyler Jones, and together we are Effekt Publishing.
We are.
And if you're watching this video, there's every chance that you already know that we are about to do a Kickstarter for our new Old West game, Tales from the Old West.
Tales of the Old West.
And Tales of the Old West as well.
Not Tales from the Old West. But hey, this is how well rehearsed and prepared we are for these videos.
Last time we used a script, it took blooming ages and wasn't very good.
And it was rubbish.
This time we're going to be a lot more naturalistic.
This is more podcasty, so strap in, guys. So faith and your big dream. Faith is one of the key concepts in Tales of the Old West. Everybody in the Old West has faith of one form or the other. It doesn't have to be religious faith, but it can be. It can be. But it doesn't have to be. Your faith can be whatever it is that helps drive you on when everybody else would fall to their knees.
Yeah, historically speaking, of course, faith was a big part of the expansion into the Old West. Don't want to sound like a history nerd here, but the manifest destiny was essentially a religious concept to kind of fight against the idea that the Eastern colonies had that they weren't going to be empire builders like the bastard British were, that they'd defeated. They were going to be independent and weren't going to try and take over the world. But that West looked very attractive. There was money to be made out there.
There was.
And they needed an excuse to go there. And faith, building the glorious city on the hill, the manifest destiny, is what brought them there. But we're talking about not just Christian faith, for a start. We're talking about all sorts of people from all over the world came to the Old West to try and make their fortune. So don't feel you have to restrain yourself to Christian faith or indeed to religious or spiritual faith at all. You might just have faith in the land, in your gun, whatever it is.
Yeah, faith in your friends, faith in your own ability to stand on your own 2 feet. And your faith is an indelible part of your character. It forms a bit of the background of your character. It gives the GM some ideas about where your character's coming from, and that's a really good thing. One of the things that we really drive for in Tales of the Old West is to help the GM have ideas to build stories which are central and stories about which are really matter to their players.
Yes, it puts the characters you create into the very centre of the stories.
Absolutely.
That as a table then you're all creating, wherever you are in the Old West.
The other thing that we do with faith in Tales of the Old West is, as it's a year zero engine game, we need a push mechanic. And faith drives your ability to push your rolls. You have a number of faith points. You spend a faith in order to push your roll. You can also spend faith to avert trouble. When you roll your dice, when you push your roll, you might come up with some trouble. And you can then spend faith to buy off that trouble if you need to.
You start off every adventure with 4 faith points. Dave and I have worked quite hard playtesting this and working out for the right amount. We think, I don't know whether this is going to make the final edition of the rule book, but we think there might be a limit of about 10 faith points. But since in playtesting, nobody has ever got near to having 10 faith points, we might just forget about a limit.
Yeah.
Wait and see on that one.
But in the game, you can earn faith. So when you spend faith, obviously your faith points go down. If you go to 0 faith, you're shaken. You can't spend faith, you can't earn faith, and other things happen. So what you need to do is build up your faith a little bit. If you know you've got a bad day the following day, if you know there's a gunfight coming or there's some trouble, you can do what all the big characters in the big movies do. They spend a bit of time getting themselves ready. They might clean their gun.
They might groom their horse.
They might have a lovely meal with some friends.
They might spend a night with a loved one.
Indeed. And each time you do this in a game, you gain a point of faith.
Well, each time. We should be really clear about this.
I was going to say, you can only do it once per scenario. So you can't spend like a week with your lover and come out going, well, I've got loads of faith now.
Or groom a whole herd of horses.
No.
No, you once per adventure, you can do that act. And I was just thinking in the playtest we did a couple of days ago, that it's a good idea. Very often we have found ourselves in playtesting short on faith and thinking, oh, I've got to go find some time to clean my gun. I think it's a really good idea to start doing those at the beginning of your adventure when you've got time. And indeed, those might turn out to be opening scenes that then the GM can
Absolutely, yeah.
interrupt with a letter that arrives or whatever. So think about that when you're playing.
Absolutely.
So let's talk in more detail about faith, Dave.
Yeah.
And trouble and pushing.
Indeed. So trouble is our name for mishaps. In this game, when you roll your dice, up to 5 of your dice in your pool will always be trouble dice.
So it's a good idea to have just D6, that's all we need to use in this game, but have 2 different colours. So these 5 black ones in this demonstration are the trouble dice, and these are the extra dice that I'm going to be using if I'm particularly skilled or using important equipment. We hope maybe if the Kickstarter goes really well that we might be able to produce some specially designed trouble dice. But at the moment, just say black is trouble, orange is
The rest.
safe.
Yeah,
as it were.
absolutely. So you'll build your dice pool from your ability and your attribute. That will be anywhere generally from 3 up to 7 or 8, depending how clever you are. But always in that pool, up to 5 of those dice will be trouble dice. If you've got 5 or less in your pool, all of your dice will be trouble.
That's an important thing to say.
Yeah. Once you get more than that, all the other dice are non-trouble dice.
So, for example, I am quite good at shooting. So I've got, I think, 5 in quickness. So that's all my trouble dice. Plus, I've got a couple of points in shooting. And let's say I've also got a gun that gives me a bonus, an attack bonus of 2. So I'm using 9 dice.
5 of which are trouble dice.
The black ones are the trouble dice. And typically here, I've just shot.
Standard year 0 stuff, no successes.
So again, standard year 0 stuff is you get the opportunity to push a roll, and that push comes at a cost. And the first bit of that cost is I spend a point of faith. So I'm down to 4 faith points, let's say.
Down to 3.
Now, it doesn't matter at this point, it does matter here. So this is a 1, and it's on one of my trouble dice, which means that I either can't roll it or I have to spend another faith point to buy it off. So the purpose of this demonstration, let's say I'm not going to roll it, I'm going to take that trouble, I'm just going to re-roll the others.
Yes, so basically, whenever you roll a 1 on a trouble die, that is trouble coming your way. As we've done here, you can accept that trouble if you go to push and you leave it to one side. You can't roll it again, but that 1 will definitely apply after you've pushed your roll. You could always, though, buy it off and with another point of faith. If you wanted to buy it off, you just spend that faith. That 1 becomes any other number other than a 6, and you roll it again with your re-roll.
Right. 1s on your other dice, the dice that aren't trouble dice, it doesn't matter. You can re-roll those as many times, well, as often as you like. No, it's not what I'm
You can re-roll them
whenever
on the
you
push.
like.
Yeah.
So now I'm rolling again. This is my pushed roll, and I get a success. But I get another 1. So now I have 2 points of trouble.
You do. The way we deal with that is you now roll on a table, and the column of the table you roll on depends on how many points of trouble you've got. So here you've got 2, so you roll on the second column. You roll 1d6, the higher the roll, the worse it is, and you work out what the trouble is. It might be physical or conflict if the roll you're making is either a combat roll,
a shooting roll in this case,
or a physical roll, or it could be a social or mental conflict, social or mental trouble if you're in a social or mental conflict instead. In this case, it's 2 dice, so it's level 2 trouble. Roll the d6, see what happens, and then that applies to the situation that.
And let's not look at that right now.
No,
I think
let's
one
not.
of the important things to bear in mind is we could have paid the first one off with a point of faith before we re-rolled. And now that we've got 2, can I buy any of those off?
You can. If you've got faith left after you've pushed the rolls, you can buy off those trouble even after your push. It obviously uses 2 faith in this instance, and you may not have 2 faith to spend.
Yeah.
So manage your faith carefully.
But I like to think that before this adventure, or as this adventure started, I groomed my horse. I woke up from a wonderful night with my loving a fiance. I had a great breakfast with my friends. I went to church
Possibly.
and said a prayer. So I've got 4 extra dice. So actually, I think I'm going to buy these off in this circumstance.
So that's one success. If you get any successes, of course, you still succeed, even if you have trouble, unless the outcome of the trouble says you don't succeed. Some of them do tell you that, but otherwise, Matthew, with that roll, would have hit his target, having shot at him.
So, for example, your gun might misfire.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth saying that we've created these trouble tables to be things that, that are generally generic enough to roll in any sort of situation.
Yeah.
But you may actually, as a GM, think, no, there's a better thing that can happen. And as long as you kind of make the impact on the story roughly the same level of trouble for the player as the impact says, because sometimes it means that the player loses a point of one of his stats temporarily or something like that, then yeah, you can make stuff up around that as well when trouble happens.
Completely. Yeah, we give a lot of latitude to the GM to decide for themselves how it should work. The trouble there is a guide. If there's something better that you and the player think of, go with that. But as you said, as long as the effect of the trouble is commensurate with the number of ones you've rolled.
Your faith allows you to push your dice in the first place by spending a point of faith, and can potentially buy off the trouble that pushing your roll with trouble dice and getting ones on your trouble dice can earn you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked about faith, and we've talked about choosing your faith, whatever it is, when you create your character, although there's no reason why you shouldn't change it later on if your faith is shaken so much you choose to put your faith in something else.
Yeah.
But the other thing that you choose during character creation, but again you can change later on if the story changes, is your big dream. Dave, tell me about the big dream.
Well, your big dream. This is the reason why your character is in the West in the first place. This isn't just about surviving to the next day. This isn't just about earning enough money to get your next whiskey and your next meal in the lovely saloon down the street. This is about what drives you to the West and what it is that keeps you going. What are you aiming for? When will you know that you've won your tale of the Old West? So my character in the campaign that I'm playing, he's a horse rancher. He's, I beg your pardon?
And murderer. Among
Well,
other
yeah,
things.
I mean, come on. But yeah, I mean, that goes without saying. He's a horse rancher. His big dream had always been to get the best herd of Appaloosa horses in the West. Now, he's succeeded in getting a couple of Appaloosas. He's now breeding them. So his big dream has now changed. He's quite old and, he gets in trouble quite a lot. So his dream is now to have a son or a daughter to hand on the ranch to. So that's a really good example of having a big dream right from the start. We've had a lot of campaign play to get to that point and then changing that dream because I've actually achieved that first dream, but now I've got a new one. And that's what it's all about. The big dream is something that drives your character. It's something that they would risk sacrificing potentially even their life to try and achieve. And it also gives the GM excellent plot hooks and ideas to draft scenarios which are really focused on what the players want and need.
My character's big dream is a lot less detailed, I think, but does seem to get me in more trouble. My character's big dream is always to do the right thing. And the right thing, as I say, often ends up getting you in trouble. And it's as simple as that. But one of the reasons that we are rewarded as players for choosing a good big dream is if we work towards that in our adventure, we get experience points.
Yeah.
And the same is true of faith as well. Of course, we get an experience point if we act in accordance with whatever our faith is as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those two things get you a mechanical benefit in terms of experience points, but they give really the GM the opportunity to put your character in the center of the action and to build the stories around the group of characters that are sitting around the table.
Yeah, which is really important to us. We've worked really hard to try and make this easy and second nature for the GM and the players. And, I think from the playtesting, it feels like on the whole, we're getting it right. So yeah, that's your faith. That's your big dream. That's Tales of the Old West. We are going to be kickstarting it very soon. If you haven't had the quick draw already.
So just go to www.effektpublishing.com, in effect with a K, and there you can sign up for our newsletter, which will tell you when more of these videos get released for a start. And you can also get a link to our drive-through page where you can download the quick draw adventures.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
See you, partner.